Добрый день всем. Мы рады приветствовать вас сегодня еще раз на мероприятии, посвященном развитию исламского финансирования в Узбекистане на площадке UZCARD. Мы бы сегодня хотели совместно с UZCARD, в партнерстве с UZCARD и с экспертами международного уровня, хотели бы сегодня затронуть тематики по реальным кейсам внедрения продуктов в исламском финансировании. Но для начала я бы хотела представить и пригласить сюда Фарруха Зияева, главу UZCARD, поприветствовать всех коллег и экспертов сегодняшнего мероприятия.
Добрый день, уважаемые гости, коллеги. Я очень рад приветствовать на, как сказать, уже не на первом данном конференции. Данное направление является немаловажным таким инструментом на международной арене, и очень важно сейчас во всех инструментариях выстраивать правильную финансовую грамотность, чтобы экономика понимала, как правильно использовать инструменты, позволяющие выстроить правильный социальный образ жизни населения, правильную экономику развивать и так далее. Поэтому я считаю, что это будет ключевым таким аспектом, который нужно будет дальше развивать, ставить правильные ценности, формировать правильные принципы. И я считаю, добро пожаловать в мир новых технологий. Всем удачи. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, Фаррухаке, за то, что запустили эту культуру развития финансовых технологий, и чтобы у нас была возможность как раз-таки поднимать актуальные тематики. Итак, сегодня, наверное, мероприятие будет проходить в гибридном формате. Сегодня собралась очень интересная, скажем так, интересный состав экспертов, которые охватывают и вендоров, и компании, то есть и банки, и экспертов, которые внедряют, а также запускают эти продукты и в Узбекистане, а также за пределами Узбекистана. Итак, сегодня я бы хотела отметить некоторых очень интересных спикеров, таких как Кайзер Насим, который как раз-таки будет обсуждать влияние исламского финансирования в Узбекистане. Хотелось бы дать немножко вводных о самом человеке. Кайзер непосредственно работал с компанией IFC на протяжении 22 лет, хорошо понимает регион Узбекистана, а также как раз-таки страны СНГ, и был один из участников запуска исламского финансирования как тренда и как направление, скажем так, и в Казахстане, и в Узбекистане, а также в других странах. Поприветствуем сегодня Кайзер Насим со своим докладом «Почему исламские финансы и в Узбекистане».
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be speaking to professionals from the Uzbekistan banking, technology sectors, regulators on a very important subject, a very important topic, especially for Uzbekistan in 2021, which is introduction of Islamic finance and banking. Just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Kaiser Naseem, as you know. And I'm an international development banker. And I've been working on Uzbekistan and with Uzbekistan financial sector ever since the independence of the country. So perhaps more than many of you have been working in Uzbekistan. And I've actually been instrumental in setting up the first commercial bank, for example, in the country. This was way back in 93, 94. That's ABN AMRO Bank. The first leasing company, not only in Uzbekistan, it was based in Tashkent, but it was the first leasing company in the region, which exists even today, which is Uzbekistan Leasing Company. I worked over the years with several other institutions, building capacity of banks for SME lending, for microfinance, and more recently, how financial institutions in Uzbekistan can leverage technology. As we know, Islamic finance has gained a lot of importance globally, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, I would say last 10 years, actually. And we all know that it's growing at a very rapid pace, more than conventional banking. Although the assets of Islamic banking in the overall assets of the financial sector globally are still small, They're probably less than 10%, but they are growing at, they're less than actually 2%, but they're growing at 10 to 12% per annum. Now, why would a country like Uzbekistan be interested in Islamic finance? There's several reasons for that. First of all, Uzbekistan is a secular country. As you can see, it has a huge population of 30 million people, and 90% of those are Muslims. And given such demographics, it has a very promising, opportunity for introducing Islamic finance, especially when we look at, promoting entrepreneurship and small businesses. We all know that there are close to 400,000 SMEs in Uzbekistan, and there's a huge credit grab of 11 or so billion US dollars. And there's always been a latent demand. There was actually a study carried out by UNDP, I'll actually just share that, which says that most small businesses are not really wanting to borrow from conventional banks, and hence they remain unserved. And in some countries, it's as high as 50% of these SMEs remain unserved, not because they are not able to borrow, but because there's no Sharia compliant product available. So if that product is available, there can be more financial inclusion. So that's one reason why Uzbekistan, where 90% of the population is Muslim, and we actually know that a lot of them are wanting Sharia compliant. So there's a huge demand for that. It's equitable finance because it's based actually on profit and loss sharing method. So it's not just lending and then leaving it to the borrowers to make sure there's a profit, but there's actually skin in the game of the lenders of Islamic finance. Islamic finance is very ethical, and we know that a lot of institutions, generally the population of all countries, are now looking at projects, are looking at companies which are more ethical, which are giving back to society. So Islamic finance is exactly that type of environment in which it operates, and it also does not invest in unethical opportunities or projects such as gambling, for example, or alcohol, or things like that. So these are some reasons why it's beneficial for countries like Uzbekistan. So the survey I was talking about by UNDP, we know that 80% of the employment in Uzbekistan comes from the SME sector. It contributes 56% towards GDP of the country. And more than 60% of businesses in Uzbekistan, it's 60% actually here, do not have a relationship with financial institutions because of the non-availability of Islamic finance. So there's this huge opportunity. If it was available, you could include about 60% more of the SMEs into the financial sector. And the UNDP also surveyed or spoke with 27 banks, and all these 27 banks, they supported the introduction of Islamic finance. We also know in recent times, there's been a lot of work being done because the Uzbek government, or the government of Uzbekistan, is committed to make sure that Islamic finance is adapted in the country because of the reasons we've just seen, that there's an opportunity, there's a demand for that. So ICD has been working a lot in this area. ICD is the private sector arm of the Islamic Development Bank. They're working with banks right now and offering them Sharia compliant lines of credit for on lending to SMEs. However, there's a big gap right now because the regulatory framework, which would allow Sharia compliant products to be developed and then to be distributed by financial institutions, does not exist. And without such a regulatory framework, it is not really possible for Islamic finance to flourish. We know that Central Bank of Uzbekistan has been working on, together with ICD and other institutions as well, in developing a regulatory framework for Islamic finance. However, that is still work in process. And therefore, although banks are wanting to offer Islamic finance and Sharia compliant products, because that there's a demand there, they're not able to do that. So the way ICD is doing it right now, which is not the most ideal way to do it, is that banks are acting as agents of ICD. So the lending is done by ICD itself, not by the banks. And the products are not, there aren't many products today because of the inability of the banks to lend because of the regulatory framework, and also because of technology platforms, which we will speak about, and I'm sure other speakers will talk about it in more detail. Similarly, the International Trade Finance Corporation, again, it's a Sharia compliant part of the IDBB. It started working in Uzbekistan, and they're trying to build partnerships and reach out to the private sector, because for Uzbekistan, trade is a very important component, a very important part of their revenue earning ability. And they need, because it's a country which is rich in several things, from minerals to agricultural produce, and there has to be in place systems which can facilitate the trade with neighbors, or even from countries which are far away. So while the Islamic finance sector is at an early stage of development in Uzbekistan, the infrastructure has started to be created, especially of Islamic securities. And I think Islamic finance transactions are still governed by presidential decrees, but there are regulatory frameworks which are being put in place. And there is also talk of a sukuk to be issued by the government for this purpose, but it will be done through, from what we understand, a presidential decree at this stage because of the lack of the regulatory framework. I've just jotted down some opportunities and the challenges. Actually, there are a lot of challenges still facing, and these challenges, by the way, are still facing Islamic finance in general. So they're not just confined to Uzbekistan, but Sharia compliant finance has a lot of challenges which it still needs to overcome. It's come a long way in the last 40, 50 years since it was introduced, and especially in the last 10 years, but we just go through that. There's still a lot of challenges. First, the opportunities, because there's a growing demand globally and even in Uzbekistan for ethical and Sharia compliant financing, especially by small businesses. Globally now, standards have been developed by standard setting bodies, and these need to be adopted by Uzbekistan. So there's this opportunity to just adopt these standards, and there's no need to make new standards for Uzbekistan. So this should be done immediately. They still have to diversify the range of products that Islamic finance offers. And today, with the ability to distribute products, financial products, more, let's say, efficiently and effectively using technology, there is a need to develop a variety of products, because there are different types of products needed by different types of businesses. And this is something which financial institutions have now realized. And they're moving away from the plain vanilla lending to structuring products which are actually in sync with the business cycle of the borrowers. Islamic finance still requires, this is the right time to introduce it, because banks, especially in Uzbekistan and most emerging markets, are still adapting technology. They're still trying to figure out how they can develop platforms to make their processes and the distribution channels more efficient. So this is the right time to plug in a Sharia compliant platform as well, making products and then using technology to distribute it simultaneously with what the central bank, the government of Uzbekistan is doing on the regulatory framework side. And those are the challenges actually. But the topmost challenge, again, not specific to Uzbekistan, but obviously more so in a country like Uzbekistan, is the dearth of qualified Islamic bankers. They're not many globally. And those who are there globally, it's, I give an analogy like, when SME banking started, so there were no SME bankers. So the SME bankers that came were actually corporate banks, converted to SME. So it wasn't really the right fit. So today we have a lot of conventional bankers converted to Islamic banking, to being Islamic bankers. So it's not, the field isn't there. Although we now have programs in universities and training courses, so we are developing a crop of Islamic bankers, but it will take time. And in Uzbekistan, there is a dearth of it. There's a dearth of conventional bankers here, so not to speak of. Awareness is a big issue. Again, the analogy can be developed from the time when banks used to push their products, which was loans, without looking at whether the recipient of the loan has the ability to use it properly. And the reason they would not have that ability is because most of the small business owners, for example, are not really well versed with finance. And hence the concept of non-financial advisory services came, that you need to educate your client of what to borrow, how to use it, how to repay it. Similarly, there's a lack of awareness of how do you recognize a Sharia compliant product, for example. So there are jurisdictions around the world where they are Islamic banks and they are offering Sharia compliant products, but the recipients say, no, I don't think this is Sharia compliant. So there's a lot of awareness, understanding on how this has been structured and why is it Sharia compliant and how can it be accessed. So that needs to be done. And this is a huge challenge. It may not be that big a challenge in Uzbekistan because of the literacy, but in many countries where people are not even literate, it's a big challenge. We already spoke about the regulatory framework, so that is evolving, and hopefully within this year, over the next year, we should see a more conducive regulatory framework for Islamic finance. But once you have that, you also need to have a central bank specifically and other regulators need to have the ability to oversee the implementation of Sharia compliance. So there's a lot of training which will need to be done by the regulators themselves. Then the monetary policy and liquidity management is a big issue. Again, not just in Uzbekistan, but generally, because there is no, you have the overnight market in conventional banking, interbank markets. In Sharia compliant instruments, it's not been developed yet. Yes, there is a Islamic liquidity management company which was formed in Malaysia, and it has started operating, but we need to expand such institutions, have more of them, so that Islamic finance can manage the liquidity, because local conventional banks can do that by placing it with other banks, borrowing from the interbank markets. And then basically, I think the pricing benchmark is still not established, and that's always been a big issue with Islamic finance. And it creates a very negative impression when we say, okay, yes, we've sort of benchmarked it with Zibor or whatever the benchmark is even in the country, and then just called it Islamic. Although the product might actually be structured on an Islamic, but the benchmark for determining the rate of the profit rate is based on the conventional. So that needs to be changed, and these things have to be developed, and there are institutions which are working on that. So what are the building blocks? What does a government like the government of Uzbekistan, the central bank, need to do? First of all, obviously, we need to have a strategy. We all know that, and a clear vision of why and how Islamic finance has to be introduced. And I strongly believe that the government of Uzbekistan central bank have that vision already, and they have a very good understanding of why and how they need to do it. The roadmap for strategic reforms in development of the regulatory and legislative frameworks, institutional capacity, because banks need to develop their capacities. You need to create an ecosystem of Islamic banking. So that also needs to be developed, and that's the second building block of it. Then this strategic plan should set the overall direction of the finance of the Islamic finance industry. So once that's in place, which I think the government of Uzbekistan and central bank are working towards, so then you can start building the regulatory frameworks, designing, implementing supervisory and prudential standards. And again, the Islamic finance standard boards has developed them. So they just need to be adapted. The government of Uzbekistan needs to leverage what these institutions have already done. There are 5 or 6 institutions, if we look at them in the next slide, which are developing the infrastructure globally for Islamic finance. The governance framework has to be put in place. Again, there are governance standards already developed internationally, Islamic governance standards, again, by the IFSB. The capital adequacy framework, again, based on the capital adequacy standard. So this needs to be adapted. So what I'm saying is that, when central bank is looking at the regulatory framework for the country, I mean, there's a lot of institutions that they can leverage and get help from to set up these structures. And that is how you would build an Islamic finance ecosystem in the country. The financial reporting standards obviously have to be adapted again from the IFI for Islamic finance institutions. Liquidity management we already spoke about. Rating agencies, again, I mean, they are Islamic rating agencies in globally. There's one in Bahrain. It's sponsored by the Islamic Development Bank, and I think now they're looking at Central Asia. I think they're already present in Kazakhstan. So once the rating of Islamic financial institutions starts, that's when the market starts developing. So there's a lot of market making done once institutions are rated and products are rated. And of course, there's a great need. We spoke about it a little bit, but enhancing the capacity building of human capital. Firstly, there should be training institutions because there's a big talent gap. So how do you train new Islamic bankers? How do you train existing bankers in Islamic finance? So these type of institutions need to be developed. I know there's several training programs that have already started in Uzbekistan. I've actually, conducted a few of those. But we need more of these institutions. I mean, these are institutions and training companies coming from outside the country providing these training. They should be able to develop Islamic banking professionals at all levels. So the training is not just for entry-level staff, but also, I would even say, supervisory boards of financial institutions, the management board, senior management need to be sensitized and made aware of what Islamic finance is and how that would affect the way an institution is, having an impact, if you may, on the economic development of the country. So these things need to be very well understood, not just by the professionals working in the bank, but also at the management and supervisory board level. And I think it is very much important for both management board and supervisory board to have that understanding so that they can provide the necessary oversight of Sharia compliant finance and banking. So these are some of those institutions globally, which central bank, I'm sure they're already engaged with them, but I just thought we'll put them up. So they're standard setters. So you have the Islamic Finance Standards Board, which we spoke about. Then you have the AOFI, Accounting Auditing Organization. This is also based in Bahrain. You have obviously the Islamic Development Bank, with which Uzbekistan has a very good relationship and partnership. Then you have the International Islamic Financial Markets, which is looking, I think, more at standardizing the documents, because again, one of the challenges is the jurisdiction. So the documentation in Malaysia, in GCC is slightly different. And then we spoke about the credit rating agencies. So these are the standard setters. Then you have a lot of research being done on Islamic finance. And these are some of the institutions, the International Center for Education in Islamic Finance, Oxford Center, Statistical Economic and Social Research Center. So these also need to be leveraged, and somehow, if it is possible to have these institutions, play a role in when the regulatory framework of the country is being developed, it would be greatly helpful. And then, of course, you have market players, some of the large ones, when you talk about raising Islamic finance or issuing sukuk. So, Kuwait Finance House, Al Baraka Banking Group, Dubai Islamic Bank, Mizan Bank in Pakistan. I mean, these are some banks which are already in the Islamic finance space and with which relationships should start to be developed already. And the reason for that is because, in 2021, there's no need to reinvent anything. There are a lot of products being developed globally for SMEs, for corporates, for raising funding, for providing funding. So these can be sort of adapted to the Uzbekistan environment, but only if one is able to identify and leverage this know-how that is available. So I'll actually just end here. I have a presentation where I've just given some background. I'm sure some of the speakers will be talking about it. What is Sharia? What are the schools of Islamic thought? I mean, we've all heard of the Hanafi, the Maliki, the Shafi, Hanabli, Jafri schools. So how do they differ? I mean, I'm not going to get into that. But we talk about Sharia compliance. So what is? I can leave this presentation So there's some lot of information there. There's some fundamental of Islamic economics, how it has evolved, what is the difference, why do we think it's ethical? The concept of money Islam, again, I just put something in the some key principles of Islamic banking. Again, I'm not going through it, but what these models are, why is money not considered a commodity? Why is interest not permitted? And because money is not, so you're not selling money. So what are those concepts? So just as an annex, I put it over there. And this basically is the ecosystem I spoke about globally, which needs to be leveraged by Uzbekistan. So I just end here. Thank you very much. Of course, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaiser, for your very detailed understanding of what needs to be done in Uzbekistan in order to fully adopt the Islamic banking. We had a speaker from Al Huda, Zubbair Mughal, who started to talk about the differences in development of the speed of Islamic banking in Uzbekistan compared to the other countries. And unfortunately, we didn't have much time to get into these details. So today, Zubbair, hello, can you hear us?
Assalamu alaikum.
Today, we would really like to get into this topic, since obviously we didn't have time last time to cover the speed of development of Islamic banking trend in Uzbekistan compared to the other countries. So you, as a person who is doing quite a lot of work on the capacity building, on training in our country, and Mr. Kaiser has pointed out that there is a lack of knowledge, there is a lack of certain infrastructure preparation. So we would really like to hear your point of view as an expert to understand how quick are we at embracing the Islamic banking trend here, and what would be your forecast maybe for, let's say, when would you see the full Islamic finance or Islamic bank to develop or emerge? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Nabatu nasalila Rasulil Kareem, Amabad Fauz Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I would like to thanks to the organizers to give me opportunity to speak in this Apex forum, and the topic which I have to discuss about development of Islamic finance in Uzbekistan and as well as in the regional countries. Briefly, my name is Muhammad Zubair. I am associated with Al Huda Center for Islamic Banking and Economics from last 15 years, and from last 12 years, we are working in Central Asian countries for the development of Islamic banking and finance. So if we see Central Asia for the Islamic banking and finance, many Central Asian countries are trying to develop Islamic banking infrastructure in CIS countries. We can say the first initiative have been taken by Kazakhstan, and then definitely the Uzbekistan is emerging in this region. Let's start with the Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan, as you know, there are Muslim-dominated population in Uzbekistan, and about 8 Islamic banks are willing to start their Islamic banking window operation by having the support from ICD and other multilateral organizations. We conducted some smart surveys in Uzbekistan to understand the demand of Islamic banking and finance in the country. In 2014, we did one assignment for Hamkor Bank to start Islamic banking in Uzbekistan. And at the time when we did some surveys, about 90% population, they feel their appetite to have Islamic banking and finance. And when we interact with the people who didn't have any banking and financial account, I mean those people who were financially excluded, about 100% those people were only Muslims. And when we asked them, what is the reason that you are not going to have Islamic banking or conventional banking account, then among 73 people, replied that due to the religious factors, we are not going to have any banking or financial account. So the appetite in Uzbekistan is very good. The demand is very good. But one of the missing component, which is also highlighted by the previous speaker, that missing component is the regulatory and legal framework. I know a lot of conventional banks, they want to start Islamic banking operation, but due to unavailability of regulatory framework, they are feeling hesitant to start their operation. And other than Islamic banking, if we see a couple of insurance company, they just started the window operation for the takaful, and couple of investors are thinking to have a full-fledged takaful company. And for Islamic capital market, unfortunately, in Uzbekistan, they are just emerging, and I'm very much optimistic. The forum and the dialogue is among the scholars, like such forums will give a new shine for Islamic capital market as well. As per Islamic microfinance institutions, some religious organization have some limited operation for Islamic microfinance as well. So in Uzbekistan, yes, there is a very good start, a bit slow, but I am very much convinced that very soon there will be a good news from this market. I observe in Uzbekistan, a lot of multilateral organizations are working for the development of Islamic banking and finance, not only Islamic Development Bank, but UNDP, Asian Development Bank, and some other multilateral organizations have a very good interest in this market. Because what I believe, when Uzbekistan will have a proper Islamic banking infrastructure, then Uzbekistan will attract a lot of foreign direct investment for Islamic banking and finance. Not only Islamic banking and finance, but as well as for Islamic microfinance, Islamic capital market, for the sukuk, for Islamic fund, Islamic indices, Islamic stock market, and etc. If we see the global size of Islamic finance, we came to know that right now the total size up to the second quarter of 2021 is $2.9 trillion. In $2.9 trillion Islamic finance industry, we can say, or we can segregate, by the way, Islamic finance industry into 7 different components. The one of the major Islamic finance component is Islamic banking. 80% of Islamic finance portfolio belong to the Islamic banking. The second component is Islamic capital market and sukuk. About 11% of the global Islamic finance market is belong to Islamic capital market and sukuk. And the third component of Islamic finance is takaful. About 2% of the total size of the takaful industry belong to the Islamic finance industry. Then Islamic microfinance, Islamic indices, and Islamic fund management and many other components are related with it. And one of the emerging component for Islamic finance is Islamic Fintech. And I would like to congratulate UZCARD and FINEXTRA to have a very unique partnership for the development of Islamic Fintech industry in Uzbekistan. So what is the regional situation in Uzbekistan? Because I believe I wrote one article last year that Uzbekistan would be the regional hub for Islamic banking and finance. And by having this regional hub, Uzbekistan that status to help out their neighboring countries in this sector. If we see the Central Asian market, which we can say are the neighboring market for Uzbekistan. Yes, let's start with Kazakhstan. Yes, Kazakhstan is a bit earlier starter. They have about 2 Islamic banks. They have a couple of very limited window operations for takaful. They have, by the way, very good Islamic micro and Islamic agricultural finance institution, which is basically supported by Islamic Development Bank to have a Islamic banking and Islamic agricultural finance in Kazakhstan. But unfortunately, in Kazakhstan, they are also facing one limitation of the regulations to facilitate Islamic finance industry in a broader way. But similarly, actually, I received one message that they are not seeing my presentation. I have a talk instead of the presentation. So in Kazakhstan, but government is trying to have some multiple development for the regulatory regimes. They set up Astana International Financial Center. By having that center, they are trying to accommodate Islamic banking and finance in the country and help out to other regional countries as well. The second country in the region which have a handsome development for Islamic finance is Kyrgyzstan. By the way, right now I am in the Kyrgyzstan in the Bishkek. We have a one training program tomorrow in the Bishkek. So in Kyrgyzstan, they showed a very good government will to have a Islamic banking in the country. But again, the limitation is the regulatory regime. Apart from that, they have one bank, one Islamic bank, which is the basically a conventional bank, but it is being transformed from conventional bank to the Islamic bank, the Eco Bank, and then they have two window operation of Islamic banking in Kyrgyz state. But unfortunately here, they do not have a takaful operation. They do not have Islamic capital market, but they have couple of good Islamic microfinance institution like Companion, Mall Block, and many others. After Kyrgyzstan, if we see that Tajikistan is trying to be emerged in the Central Asian region. Again, in Tajikistan, they have a one full-fledged Islamic bank, Tawheed Bank. Basically, Tawheed Bank was the conventional bank, but they converted from the conventional bank to as a Islamic bank by the support of ICD. Tawheed Bank is the only full-fledged Islamic bank in Tajikistan. Then two Islamic microfinance institutions who are regulated by the Central Bank of Tajikistan also have Islamic banking window operation. The Hamo Microfinance and one of the microfinance, another, they have Islamic microfinance operation in Tajikistan. Again, Islamic Development Bank had couple of Islamic microfinance program in the country, but in Tajikistan, they do not have any takaful company or any Islamic capital market. But if we see in the regional countries of Uzbekistan, one of the major missing component is Sukuk. There is no experience of Sukuk in this region, in any Central Asian countries, but appetite is very, very big. There are about 20 Islamic financial institutions are working in Central Asia, but they are facing a lot of problem related to the, you can say, the liquidity management. They have a lot of money to be invested, but they do not have an avenue for the investments. And similarly, government also required the funding for infrastructural development projects. But unfortunately, they do not have any we can say any vision to attract foreign direct investment, to all attract international funding for infrastructural development project. Because Sukuk is a very good instrument for the governments. Whenever they want to raise a bulk funding for the roads development, for the ports development, for airports development, even airlines developments, railway developments, Most of the governments issue the sukuk, for example, in Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia, in the Middle East, and even in Africa and Europe, including UK, the governments of those countries which I mentioned issue the sukuk to raise the funding for different projects. So I observed that in Central Asian countries, there are a lot of governmental development projects in different countries, including the development of hydro dams, including the developments of the road networks, including the developments of the airlines and the ports, and including the development of the tourism industry. They want to do a lot of things, but in the regional market, they do not have the access of such bulk funding. So sukuk would be a very good instrument for the development of Islamic finance in this region. By the way, being the advisor and consultant to Islamic banking industry, whenever we talk about to design a roadmap for Islamic banking, we are recently working with different governments in different continents to design their 5-year or 10 years roadmaps for Islamic finance. And whenever we start with the governments, we ask them, you may start with the takaful, you may start with the sukuk, and then Islamic banks come. But in Central Asian countries, what I observe, there are Islamic banks, but we do not have the risk management of Islamic bank, I mean the takaful companies. We do not have any liquidity instruments to facilitate the Islamic banking industry, which might be a one hurdle for the development of Islamic finance in Central Asia. Why we talk about takaful or sukuk should be installed before to the Islamic banking? Because we believe that a takaful company can work without Islamic bank, but our Islamic bank cannot work without a takaful company. But in our Central Asian countries, we can see there are a lot of Islamic banks or Islamic microfinance institutions, but unfortunately, they do not have any Islamic insurance company or any liquidity management tool like sukuk and etc. So what I believe that along with the Islamic banking and finance, that if we promote other similar components like takaful, sukuk, Islamic capital market, Islamic credit card, Islamic payment gateways, and etc., then we can facilitate Islamic banking and finance in this region in a broader way. And I am sure that by increasing other Islamic financial instruments, increasing the share of Islamic financial instrument in this region, Uzbekistan may play a vital role. And I believe that UZCARD will introduce the Islamic credit card or Islamic debit card for this market, because in all of the Central Asian countries, we didn't see such type of the product. And I also believe the FINEXTRA under the leadership of the Narkisa will also introduce some Islamic fintech applications or Islamic fintech platform to facilitate Islamic banking and finance in Uzbekistan, but not in Uzbekistan, in this region in a better way. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in this forum. Thank you, Jazakallah. If you have any question, I will be available.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zubair. Please do stay with us, since we're going to have more discussions and a panel discussion and obviously some questions that will be coming from the audience. Thank you again. Please do stay with us. So we have some of the key topics in terms of the infrastructure and in terms of the development and the speed of development of Islamic banking here in our country. So today, would also like to invite one of the keynote speakers. It's a person who is the head of the business in Bank Islami in Pakistan, Mr. Bilal Fayaz, the person who's got enormous experience in building, not just working in one of the biggest Islamic bank in Pakistan, but also building from the scratch the Islamic banking institutions. So Mr. Bilal kindly agreed to participate and to share his experience, because at the end of the day, we would like to talk about the real case scenario and how it's been done elsewhere. What are the methodologies? And since we do have Mr. Bilal, hello.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello, how are you? Assalamu alaikum to everybody.
We are very good. Thank you very much for joining us. Since we are talking about the digitalization part, and since you do have enormous, a lot of experience in selecting the vendor and understanding what the transformation is all about. In our country, we just started the route for the transformation, and we have 5 banks and obviously insurance companies that started this transformation and a journey. And what we wanted to know is, from your perspective, what are the methods, what are the selection methods for the vendors, for the project management, as well as making sure that the project is successful. And maybe to cover a few points, I know it's a big topic, but if we can have some high-level understanding based on your experience of what to look at in the vendors, how to tackle the projects, and how to make it successful. It would be very valuable for all the audiences and banks, as well as insurance companies who are currently listening to us. Thank you very much, Bilal.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope you can hear me well, everybody. Okay. Let me share my first experience with you. Alhamdulillah, I've been a part of, one of the geography where we have been launched Islamic banking from the scratch. And it is the market which is in the GCC, Oman is a market which have been lastly to launch the Islamic banking over there. So, so all these challenges, alhamdulillah, we have faced it, but we have overcome it very well. One of the things which is I'm going to touch base upon, I will come to the point, choosing the vendor and all those kind of things. I agree with my other respectable speakers, that, we have to develop a ecosystem, and also the training, and also the resources, also the vision and strategy. These are all the good things which we need to have. But we have to start from somewhere. It's a chicken and egg story. Either in the more developed market is that the central bank come with the framework of Islamic banking, the other banks, then you have to follow it also, and accordingly what we need to do. Okay. Regarding the selection of the vendor is concerned, which I would like to say that, basically in Islamic, you have to, in Sharia compliant, you have to have that your accounting entries has to be Sharia compliant as per those things. Because it's a one process which makes the Islamic banking, Sharia compliant. That process has to, because Islamic banking transaction happens in legs. It's a mostly everybody knows it. If somebody needs some clarification, I can elaborate on that. Islamic banking transactions happen in legs also. So it is, preferable to have a right kind of resources who can select your fintech, your basically technology partner well, who can transfer the other modes of Islamic banking into that thing. Because we talk about SME also, we talk about retail banking products, we can talk about the corporate banking products, we can talk about the treasury products. So all these things has to be, their back-end entries has to be Sharia compliant to make it an Islamic product also. Like, let just give you a basic example of that thing. The McDonald's burger in Thailand would taste the same, which is available in other market, in the UAE market, but one is Sharia, but one process makes it halal, and other process make it haram also on that thing. So this is a basic difference on that thing. And the other thing is that, Islamic banking and digitalization is a very key thing, which I can stress upon, because Islamic banking cost of doing business is a little higher as compared to the conventional banking. Their cost to income ratio is higher. The reason is why, because the transaction happens in lag. As per the EY report, Islamic banks are 19% higher in the cost as compared to the conventional bank. So over here, the digitalization and fintech part comes in also. So if you have a right fintech, you can have a smart contract, digital contract in place, which, then you can able to give the swift and quick service to your customer also. And you can develop a better customer value proposition also on that thing. Okay, just give you and just sharing you my experience from my market where we are. There are two geographies which I have launched Islamic banking from scratch. One of them, when I told you Oman was there, that there is when you launch Islamic banking, you are not basically launching only a product or services. Basically, you're going to educate the masses over there also. And people used to come to Islamic banks, wanted to learn about Islamic banking, what is it about also. And that will be going to be a similar case going to happen in Uzbekistan also. As just to give you a basic example on the Muslim population segmentation, there are four kind of, different kind of people mindset which we have in Islamic banking and in the Muslim. One is a hardcore believer of Islamic products, like my other respectable speaker told us that, there are many SME people who wanted to do banking, but they are refrained to do it because it's not a Sharia compliant. In the Muslim segment, the first segment of the person will be that hardcore Islamic believer. And he will, whatever he will going to come to Islamic bank and do that also. Other segment will be the confused segment. Whether it's Islamic, whether it's a Sharia compliant, whether the fatwas are available, whether, and that's one of the larger part of the population which we have. So here that, Islamic bank came, play a role, and we done it through our seminars, our, on the social heights and going to the universities and telling them people, then, this is how it makes it, answering to the question and answer on that thing. And the third segment, which is on the Muslim side, is also the benefit-driven, segment, where he sees the benefit in the conventional side, he moves to the conventional side. Whether he sees the benefit on the Islamic side, he moves to the Islamic side. And the fourth segment will be in the Muslim population will be the hardcore non-believer of the Islamic banking. I have witnessed that in some of the geographies also on that thing. So these are the four things that you need to work on that thing. Surely we have to develop an infrastructure also. The resources development is one of the main thing, and all those things. So there are different Islamic models which you can adopt in the country. One is the full-fledged Islamic bank. Other is the subsidiary of the Islamic bank. Third will be the windows of the Islamic bank. And right now, I would stress, Uzbekistan is starting on the, coming as a new entrant. The best suitable model which we can do it is around the, is the window model, where you can easily have a cost-effective also, and where you can easily convert your conventional products into Islamic banking products. So like that, you already have your value proposition for your SME segment or your retail banking segment. Like you have a deposits, saving account, current account, you can easily convert them into a Islamic. So you can offer through a Islamic banking window. And over here, you can, save a huge cost. And I've seen in many geography where the Islamic windows have come to become more profitable because there's a work on the cost sharing mechanism. At your admin costs, your HR costs, your, other costs and the resources you can, have a still, existing resources you can train upon, and you can do the Islamic banking on that thing. So this is something which we can do that. And as my brother has rightly said, Islamic banking, when we call it sometimes Islamic, sometimes people confuse it like a mosque, only Muslim can on that, thing. I can share with my other, employer experience that, in Malaysia, our 50, 55, 60% of clienteles were non-Muslims. I'm talking about my Standard Chartered experience, because over there, we call it a more ethical way of doing a banking on that thing. And so we can do the same as in the case in the UAE market, where 35 to 40% of clientele is a non-Muslim for even most of the Islamic banks also. So this is a more ethical way of doing a banking, as for the sure. This is no if and but about it. The regulatory framework has to be there. I don't know when the government going to start it, but we can work around with the banks to help them to develop their framework, which is accordingly which will be Sharia compliant. And when the, maybe when the, that framework comes in, it will going to merge with that also, that we can do that. And their accounting entries and their, that become, choosing the vendors will be an easier thing for do that also. And also the resources are one of the main challenges. Sometimes the languages become a challenges also. But we can go for the trainer concept. We can help them to do that. And org chart has to be aligned on that thing. So vendor selection, no doubt, is one of the imperative part. And you need to, we have a, that all the products, whether you're offering housing finance, whether you're offering auto finance, their chart of account, their back-end entries has to be aligned with as per the Sharia compliant manner. Otherwise, that the entire, sometimes income will go into a charity if it's not Sharia compliant. So that's the main thing which we need to do. So I think so that, from the top, I think so I would suggest that things has to go right. You have the right, we need to fix the people part right. If you get the people part right, you have a right consultant, right person who can help you to select the vendor, who can help you to select the other things will automatically can, merge together and give you a better result on that thing. I think so that's about it. I think so I will not take much of the time for this thing, but this is something to a broader level which I wanted to share. If there is any question regarding that thing, please, I love to answer them. I can share my experience more directly. Even on the short notice, I have made a presentation which is kind of a roadmap to launch an Islamic bank also, Islamic window or Islamic bank also, which I can share it with you other forum, but it's a proper checklist and what will be going to happen in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, how we going to do that also in that thing. But there's a short of time, so I'm not going to share it right now, but hopefully in next, in meeting, I can do that also on the individual basis.
Mr. Bilal, thank you very much for your notes and for your presentation. So please do stay with us because we're going to move to the Q&A session after another speaker. And we will definitely elaborate on a few of the key points around the transformation. Thank you. And now, since we're now covering the digitalization part and choosing the vendor as well as the best practice or the next generation solution for the Islamic banking, I would like to invite Mr. Халид Шукри, who is a senior consultant at one of the biggest fintech companies called FINEXTRA. And we would like to cover the point around what's available from the technology side, from the fintech side. What are the solutions that will allow any bank or financial services institution to go live, painlessly as well as effectively? So what's available out there? Mr. Khalid, are you online?
Yes, thank you, Nargis. Thank you for the introduction. I would like to say good morning to everyone and thank you for joining us in this webinar. My name is Halid Shukri and I'm a senior solutions consultant in FINEXTRA based out of the Dubai office. And today I'll be talking to you about the road to digital transformation for an Islamic bank. To kick things off, here's the agenda for today. I'll start with a brief introduction about FINEXTRA, followed by what drives banks to undertake digital transformation. Next, I'll be talking about the adoption of digitization in Islamic banking, with a brief showcase on some success stories that we are proud to be part of. Following that, I'll do an introduction to our solution, Fusion Essence Islamic, and to conclude, a glimpse into how our innovation platform enables banks to grow and expand with minimal to non-vendor dependency. At the end of the session, of course, I will open the floor for Q&A, where I'll be happy to respond to all of your questions. So before anything, I have to say, who is FINEXTRA? FINEXTRA was formed in 2018 with the merger of two tech giants, Mises and DNH. We are one of the top 3 largest fintechs in the world, proudly, and we provide financial institutions with financial solutions and services that cater to a wide variety of business lines, including community markets in the Americas, corporate and retail banking across all regions, as well as state-of-the-art payment solutions and market-leading treasury and capital market solutions. We support over 8,500 customers in over 130 countries, of which 90 are of the world's top 100 banks, with the help of over 10,000 employees. We're also proud to say that 6% of the daily trade finance business and 71% of total syndicated loans are processed through our solutions, along with other significant metrics in retail, payments, and loan origination, as you can see on the screen. Apart from that, of course, we are also proud to host and sponsor innovation platforms such as Hack of the Future or Hack to the Future. And we also like to have a footprint in CSR activities, basically in interactions with the human factor as well. It's not just all about business. And over here, we see FINEXTRA's footprint when it comes to Islamic banks running their operations using our Islamic banking solution. As you can see, the customer base spans multiple geographic regions, which is a testament to how adaptable our solution is. And as previously mentioned by my esteemed co-speakers, Islamic banking is quite intense when it comes to the procedure. So each demographic or each geographic region would have its own interpretation of how they would want to operate their operations. And of course, for that, you would need a very flexible platform to cater to all of these things. But before I talk about us, let's look a little bit into why banks embark on transformation journeys in the first place. In this day and age, of course, a bank can choose to either be reactive and follow what the market trend is, or be proactive and lead the way ahead of everyone else. However, there are, let's say, common market drivers that influence these decisions, such as ensuring that the bank is generating enough profit to keep the operation going. Because as mentioned earlier, Islamic banking is quite cost intense. Therefore, we need to ensure that the banks are making their profit margins doable. And there's always an emphasis, of course, on ensuring that customer demands and expectations are met. And most importantly, that the entire operation is working within the boundaries set by the regulating bodies within these countries. That, of course, in turn shines a light at some aspects that either enable improvement or hinder it completely inoperable. The major ones being switching from legacy systems, enhancing the customer experience, of course, and ensuring that the regulatory rules are all followed and adhered to within the confines of operating on a daily basis. And hence, basically, arises the need for, let's say, a recipe for success, or a business model that addresses each of these challenges I just mentioned. So first off, it has to be digital centered. It has to, let's say, focus on providing a dynamic and portable user experience that allows the bank to reach its customers wherever they are anytime. And this, of course, got fast-tracked nowadays after COVID and the impact it had on the world, not just banking. So basically, banks now need to go where the customers are and not the other way around. Next, the solution needs to provide the bank with what I would say functionality that strengthens its operation and streamlines it, be it through automation or by supporting complex requirements. So a solution is not supposed to just keep things as is, it needs to improve them and support the enhancement of that operation. And lastly, of course, a banking platform that enables and supports growth. Banks do not want to go through multiple enhancement cycles and keep repeating that operation on and on. They need an open platform that supports the growth without adding any costs or dependency on the vendor. And of course, this brings us to the main topic in today's webinar, and that is, what are the drivers behind Islamic banking digitization? So when it comes to Islamic banking, there are many factors, of course, that represent challenges, as mentioned earlier, but we kind of shed a light on, let's say, these four main ones, and they are, of course, scalable across all regions. Whether it's the product complexity itself, considering how Islamic products are in comparison to their conventional counterparts, and of course the many steps and, let's say, the accounting entries that happen behind the scenes, as well as the parties involved in the origination process. All of these things add to the complexity of the product itself. That same complexity contributes to a slower time to market, and of course, consequently, potential delays in product launches, and the impact that might have on profit margins as well. And due to the lack of a universal standard, so to speak, banks would require either a bespoke solution that addresses their regional regulators' requirements, or constant enhancements and changes to keep up with all of the changes as mentioned earlier. And finally, of course, the higher administrative costs that are associated with a complex workflow that involves multiple people working on the same transaction or the same product life cycle. All of these things come together to form a set of challenges, so to speak, that hinder banks from maintaining their profit margins and launching their products in time. So in order to mitigate these challenges, we at FINEXTRA developed Fusion Essence Islamic to address each of these challenges with one focal point in mind, and that's ensuring it is future forward. Over here, and just to talk about the adoption of Islamic banking in the fintech world, here are a few examples of how financial institutions are gearing up with technology, and basically that's to cater to the current day Islamic banking consumer. First, we have Hon Leong Bank, who adopted eKYC technology, and basically that's to enrich their digital onboarding experience and make it possible to verify one's identity with something as simple as a selfie. And next we have Bank Islam, who partnered with KipplePay, and that's to provide students with a mobile app that enables cashless transactions within their campus as well as other merchants. And then we have Compare Hero, along with iMoney and Ringgit Plus, who basically partnered up to provide an aggregator service that enables customers to compare banking products across different service providers and basically take the journey from there. And finally, a conglomerate of 4 financial institutions that aim to provide individuals and businesses alike with peer-to-peer financing, having each one relying on its core competence or core strength. So this is a testament to how different entities can work together to form a stronger proposition that addresses the Islamic market's growing needs. Another successful story is how we at FINEXTRA were able to support Qatar International Islamic Bank on their transformation journey. And basically, we were able to help them transform their legacy system to a state-of-the-art Islamic solution that caters to their needs and basically addresses their challenges. I'll play a short video now, basically an interview with Mr. Nasser Mahmoud, CIO of QIIB, where he describes the transformation journey his bank embarked on and how it affected their operation.
I'm Nasser Mahmoud. I'm the CIO of QIIB. QIIB established in the early 90s, and QIIB is one of the largest Islamic banks in Qatar. You can consider it's the private Islamic bank. We have a very aggressive competition in Qatar within Islamic banks and between Islamic banks and conventional banks as well. That we have to, this leads us to enhance our services frequently from time to time and enhance our product prices as well. and for sure enhance the outcome or the return on investments for our stockholders. The QIB mission at this stage is to provide beyond the expectation banking services. QIB is targeting to provide the highest rate for its shareholders and depositors, as well as satisfying QIB staff, providing the good environment for staff to provide more services and high quality services for our clients. Earlier, we had our conventional banking, core banking system, which is not supporting Islamic banking at all, and this was the biggest challenge. In 2012, we have upgraded to Bank Fusion. Now our core banking understands Islamic finance from the accruals, calculation, recovery for installments, understanding the accounting structure, accounting rule. And after that, our challenge was streamlining the business processes, because everything up to the moment is being handled whether by local development or whether by manual processes. User have to verify documents, user have to collect lots of documents, manual. Steps for approval, for escalation is manual. So this is impacting the cost of the product, because it's increasing the turnaround time, increasing the cost of completing a transaction, because you are including a huge stuff. It's increasing the operational risk, and this impacting the price of your products at the end. Islamic banking is resolving lots of these challenges by providing business process management engine, by providing a way to scan documents and to embed it within any transaction, by covering all types of transaction, meaning that origination and origination phase, or even after booking the deal to the core banking, like the rescheduling, like the early payment, postponement of an installment. I believe this engine will help us to reduce number of participants within a specific process, reducing the turnaround time, and at the end reducing the cost. The top priority is the customer experience, but customer experience need operational efficiency. Regulatory is another challenge, because without compliant with Sharia regulation, with central bank regulation, we cannot sell. Today, QIB, considering MICES, is a strategic partner, and that's why we take the decision to be the first one using the Islamic banking product.
So, as seen in the video, adopting our Fusion Islamic platform basically enabled QIB to provide an enhanced customer experience that differentiates it amongst its peers. And apart from that, it also enabled the bank to streamline its processes and introduce automation, basically through a seamless workflow solution that manages the origination process from end to end. And finally, QIB was also able to build and adhere to the Sharia compliance requirements that their products need to abide by. This brings us to Fusion Essence Islamic and how it enables banks basically to address their Islamic banking needs. Firstly, it delivers an enhanced customer experience, whether that's through its integrated onboarding functionality or the rich digital branch capabilities that serve both customer service representatives as well as product managers. It is built on the latest technology, and it incorporates a rich set of features that basically drive banks towards success, and that includes pre-configured Islamic products that allow banks to hit the floor running. And finally, an innovation platform that allows banks to expand their functional footprint, so to speak, with minimal reliance on us, the vendor. Rather, we actually endorse collaboration and partnership, as I'll be explaining shortly. Fusion Islamic caters to the full Islamic financing origination lifecycle, starting from interactions with interested prospects through any channels the bank desires, such as mobile devices or touchpads, going through the application process and the back office operations, all the way to finalizing the deal with the customer and creating the finance account. Of course, it doesn't stop there. The finance operation itself keeps on going even after the account itself has been booked. And Fusion Islamic also supports post-establishment services such as rescheduling, installment postponement, and many more. All of this is from a servicing perspective. However, you need to also consider that sometimes you need to expose these interactions to the outside world. Not everything happens within the bank. Hence, a very honorable mention of a very rich API library, which enables banks to expose these services or expose these interactions to the outside world, hence providing a more seamless interaction with customers as well as a better overall customer experience. We are, of course, proud to have been recognized by the Forrester Wave as a leader in the banking solution industry with our strong strategy towards future-proofing solutions, digital adoption, and fostering collaboration. Of course, by doing that, we basically have ensured that we support banks eliminating their legacy systems, enhancing their customer experience, and making sure that they are indeed operating within the established guidelines set by their regulating bodies. And lastly, when it comes to how we deliver Fusion Islamic, we have adopted a model bank deployment approach, basically, where we have pre-configured products based on industry best practices such as IOFI, as an example. And that is made possible, of course, due to the customizability of Fusion Islamic itself as a platform, allowing us to adapt the product to our customers' needs and not the other way around. Because in the end, the purpose here is for us to cater to the banks and the banks to cater to the customers. So we follow a customer-centric approach when it comes to any of our initiatives. And once we've established the bank's minimum viable product, which is the minimum set of products that the bank wants to go live by, we are ready to launch operations with, let's say, a select customer demographic. And from there, the bank can expand and grow its business model as it sees fit. Of course, that's in line with its own market needs and its available resources. I would like to close with one last topic, and basically that is our innovation and collaboration platform, fusionfabric.cloud. As mentioned earlier, we at FINEXTRA, we foster partnership and collaboration, and it is with that in mind that we developed and launched our own innovation platform, fusionfabric.cloud. In a few words, I would say fusionfabric.cloud is a platform that enables others, such as fintechs, developers, or system integrators, to develop applications on top of FINEXTRA's own products. And of course, facilitating a seamless and hassle-free integration that enhances and expands the solution's existing features. That, of course, can be, let's say, in the form of an alternate customer-facing interface, bank-specific features, and so on. Thus, of course, capitalizing on the bank's existing assets and releasing it from vendor dependency. In addition to that, all of these apps are hosted on our own store for other banks, of course, to purchase and enrich their solution landscape. Basically the same way we interact with the Apple Store or Google Play. But in this case, banks are purchasing banking applications that support the bank's strategic growth appetite. With that, I conclude my presentation for today, and I would like to open the floor for any questions. Otherwise, Nargis, if you'd like to...
Yeah, thank you very much, Khalid, for your presentation and for insights. We would really like to invite you for the panel discussion now. and just to join the conversation in regards to how to digitalize the Islamic banking trend in the banking here in Uzbekistan. And I would like to invite here for the panel discussion, Mr. Arif Said. Please do come and join us. Mr. Arif is an advisor for the transformation of Halk Bank here in Uzbekistan, and he will also share some tips in regards to what the bank is doing currently and how are they seeing the development of Islamic window here in Uzbekistan. Also, I would like to invite here Ms. Iroda from Al Huda to talk about the. Please do join here. Since Al Huda is doing quite a lot of things in Uzbekistan in terms of capacity building, in terms of the training, and there's a lot of things on the regulation side that you are helping the authorities. And Mr. Bilal, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Mr. Bilal. Yeah. We would like you to participate in our panel discussion as well from your experience of obviously launching Islamic banking in Oman, in Pakistan and other countries. And Khalid, you still here?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Yeah, we see your face now. So we would also like you to join the conversation from the technology side, from the fintech perspective, okay? I would like to, the first question, since we do have quite a lot of questions here from the audience coming live, I think the first question going to be to Mr. Arif, because this is this is something that the audience can relate more. What are the plans for the transformation in Halk Bank currently? How you see, what are the ways of transformation? What are you planning to achieve? And what's the vision? Why Islamic banking window is launching in Halk Bank?
There were a lot of projects and plans to transform the Halk Bank, but changeover of the new management now transformation plan considerably changed, but they are still focusing on Islamic banking. Islamic banking, as far as the Uzbek market is concerned, it's a very viable business, okay, because 35% of population of Uzbekistan is out of banking industry because of interest-based banking, and they are willing and they are like to be part of Islamic banking. So there's so much attraction in either Islamic window or full-fledged Islamic bank. It is my understanding once any bank goes for Islamic window or new full Islamic bank comes to the market, so half of the existing customer of conventional banking immediately attract to Islamic banking immediately. Okay, I'm not talking about the tap new market or new customers. Even the existing customer goes into Islamic banking immediately. So there is a huge opportunity to start with Islamic banking. And right now in Uzbekistan, especially in the banking sector, all the banks are focusing on retail banking products, and they want to be more on retail side rather than corporate business. So as far as Halk Bank and other banks are concerned, they are looking forward to launch retail banking products in the first phase of Islamic banking or Islamic window. And there is, of course, like Marhaba, Darba, Ijara, all the car financing, all these kind of products need to be a part of first phase of Islamic window to attract retail banking customers immediately. Right now, most of the banks are in Uzbekistan doing transformation towards the digital banking, and that's why when I was working in Halk Bank, so we thought that the digital platform for Islamic banking is very, very important to attract the customer, and which, for example, the card business, P2P payments and other payment related to cards should be part of first phase of Islamic window or to make a differentiator with other banks. So this is one of the key differentiator for retail banking business supposed to be part of Halk Bank transformation.
Arif. So we definitely looking forward for the Islamic banking in Uzbekistan, especially from one of the biggest state-owned banks such as Halk Bank and the rest. But the next question would be to Mr. Khalid. Khalid, based on your experience, obviously you've touched the points in regards to the fact that, you know, it's much better to look for the technology which is already, you know, which is kind of a forward-looking, that has got all the capability that can be grown or expanded based on the business needs. Not today, maybe tomorrow. So it needs to be a box of all the instruments, of all the financial instruments that's available. So I want to understand, since we are currently in the verge of development and a lot of things, you know, a lot of products cannot be easily executed right now in a phase one in Uzbekistan. What are the best implementation methods for the technology? What, you know, is there any way as a technology or the fintech provider, is there any way that you can provide, or any, you know, is there anything that's available to effectively implement, let's say, very quickly within the next 3 to 5 months time, anything that can be available for the bank to use?
So this will bring me back to the model bank approach that we adapted. So we did two things. The first one is have a pre-configured set of products and configurations that a bank can basically run on. And apart from that, as I mentioned, to adapt to different regions or different regulations, the solution itself has to be very flexible to basically adopt or adapt that regulations, needs, or requirements. So pre-configuration, this enables a bank to launch products and go live quite fast if they are going to launch with standard features, let's say, based on a well-known organization such as IOFI, which is what we built our products on. And going with a minimum requirement that matches a good kickstart for the bank's operations is the best approach. 3 to 6 months or 3 to 5 months is a little bit unrealistic because to cater to a market, there has to be some changes. So I would say it's more towards 6 to 9 months, and that would be a very good launch with a very strong footprint in the market.
9 months, that's going to be a fully live implementation to go to have Islamic banking window.
Or shorter, the closer they are to the model that we already have. I mean, I'm considering an actual implementation that considers the bank's specific needs. The less they want, the faster they can go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Bilal, I think the next question, since we are talking about the technology and transformation, and you've touched a very important point, that there is a ready-made methodology to go live or to manage the project effectively in the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and so on. So what do you think, where does the bank need to start and how it needs to be managed? Obviously, there's a lot of things, including the technology, such as human capital and training. But from the technology perspective, and I will ask Iroda to add a little bit after that on a capacity building and a human capital.
Okay, thank you so much, Nargis, for the question. I will always say through my experience that, you know, if you get the people part right, you will get the things right also. If the person on the top or somewhere on the management, he understands the Islamic banking, if he knows that what will be the challenges, and if he has the experience, he will be able to deliver those things. Okay. One thing is right, I agree with Khalid, you know, they will take 3 to 9 months time for the transformation, but Having said that, if you have the experience, if you have done it before, you can do it quickly also. I have done it in 6 months time in one of the banks also, and one of the largest, government bank which I've done it. And government bank is not easy to move because they have their own structure and their own kind of things, that. So, but the main thing will be easy that, one thing which I would like to say that whatever the, financial, the fintech solution we have, it has to offer a 360-degree solution. Rather, we have to have a replicate products like for the treasury solutions, we need to have something on the Islamic side also. For the trade finance, we have to have something on the Islamic side also. And retail banking side, we have to have something on the Islamic side, and corporate and SME also on that thing. So it's easier for us, first to replicate those products into Islamic products and make sure that, the system is aligned according to accounting entries, then we can do that also on that basis. So this is something which if the person understands the product and processes and has the knowledge of, regarding that, how will the accounting entries and what will be the process of this thing, if that the system is according to, as Khalid said, is Sharia compliant according to IOF standards, then there will be no issues on that thing. But sometimes regulations differ from country to countries. I agree with that thing. And some, right now we in our market, there's some regulation different, but some in GCC market and UAE market and, Saudi Arabia market, the regulation is different. So you have to align your system according to the framework which that central bank or other things which we have to offer. But having said that, you can do it quickly if you know the inside in-depth knowledge of the product and all those things.
What needs to be done from the regulation perspective while the regulation is keep shaping up and it does reflect the capability of the solution itself, the technology? Khalid, how do you address these issues? In the virtue of shaping up the regulation, how flexible the technology must be in order to embrace these regulations and changes? How does the fintech usually meet these changes?
So as Mr. Bilal mentioned, a very integral, deep knowledge of what these products are based on and where they can change is required to make or create a platform that can, let's say, be customizable on that level. So as an example, one bank or one region or one demographic might want to implement a different set of accounting entries that are in addition to the standard. From our side, we built our products based on the standard. However, the platform can cater to adding further or changing the existing accounting entries to match what they need. So this is one aspect. Another aspect, of course, is channels and how you want the process to go forward and what interaction points are there. Again, within a very rich API library, you can either bring in external information or bring in external artifacts into Essence itself, or expose internal Essence artifacts to the outside world. Hence, plugging the solution into the world that this bank is within.
Thank you very much.
Nargis, Nargis, sorry to stop you. Can I add something on the Khalid point? I just want to give you one. Okay, just want to give you one live example. What the system flexibility we need to have in the Islamic side. Right now, I just give you an example of the housing finance which we have over there. There is a government announced one housing finance for the masses over here in Pakistan right now, and government is subsidizing that product. Okay, so we are charging a subsidized rate from the customer. But central bank is giving us a different rate that they need to reimburse it to the banks also. Like we are charging 5% to the customer, but central bank is giving us a 11% rate. So other, the 6% is our margin of the profit. So in that particular case where the system, flexibility comes in, we have to have two schedules made for that system, for this particular client. One, we have to give it to the customer, and other, we have to give it to the central bank to reimburse on that thing. So this is where the challenge of the flexibility, we need to make sure whatever the system, the technology partner is, they have to have a flexibility to change the system accordingly on those things. So a lot of bank kind of challenges has come in that when we have this kind of trend. So this is something of a live example which Khalid has said. So I just want to give you an example on that thing.
Thank you very much, Bilal. I want to add something here as well from the perspective of local banks, because we do engage with some banks who are trying to do the transformation and launching Islamic windows. But as a culture, or maybe as a perception, we see that most of the banks would like to go with a minimum functionality, thinking that there is only 4 or 5 products available, and that will be enough for, let's say, for the next couple of years to have. So how do you think, Arif, maybe that's a question to you, since obviously you work in the country. How do you see this perception? Do you see that these banks will be facing another transformation and another vendor selection process, or do they have to start from the scratch, choosing the best technology that is scalable? Because we do have this perception that the cheapest is best. 3-4 products would be enough to cover some kind of a need of Islamic banking trend.
In the local market of Uzbekistan, most of the bank right now looking for cheapest solution, which is not the right strategy. They should have a scalable system from the beginning, because once you buy a system which is for Islamic window or Islamic banking, need to be able to cater all the requirement, either as retail, corporate, treasury, as rightly mentioned by Bilal, trade finance and all other products. Because once you buy a system, regardless you are launching a phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3 later on, subject to availability of experienced people within the organization or consultants which help them through the implementation phases of this Islamic window across the bank. So scalability and technology viability is very important to have to pick up the right solution at the right time. Okay, regardless how many products you're launching in the first phase. Okay, but here in Uzbekistan, because this is a new phenomena. It's not, people are not familiar, not even the bank employees and bank senior management does not know much about Islamic banking here. Okay, and central bank itself are just trying to set up Islamic banking department. There is no such rules and regulation coming up from the central bank either. So right now it's very infancy stage to implement Islamic banking product. Most of the time the banks will be depending either on consultants or with the vendors, how they take them through with this Islamic window business. Okay, but overall financial market is not really ready for Islamic financing. Only 4, 5 or 6 banks now getting into Islamic banking. Okay, there are other many Islamic financing features or need to be introduced in Uzbekistan, like Islamic insurance, credit unions, and other Islamic mode of financing, which need to be part of this evolution process. Right now, because in banking sector, what we are witnessing here is to get into the retail side of the banking to cater Islamic banking, because banks are not ready in terms of human capital. They don't have experienced people within the banks who can support vendors, even who can write RFPs and business processes, how Islamic banking need to be done. So in my opinion, in Uzbekistan, the banks need to go through a phase-wise approach, and most of the banks, they are on retail side. So retail few products, 4, 5, 6, whichever they want to decide with the help of consultants, need to start with. At least something will move on quickly, okay? And of course, for all these products, we need to have a digitalization as well, because the local market in conventional banking, they are using all the digital products. So they are pretty much familiar with the digital functionality of the banking products. So they want to have the same kind of feature and facility in Islamic banking as well.
Correct. Okay.
That's the way these vendors and consultants to move forward on Islamic banking or take the banks through with this.
Now talking about the capacity building and a concept, understanding what's available. Iroda, I would like to ask you the next question, because your organization is doing a lot of work in regards to the training, in regards to developing the trend of Islamic banking. I know that you work with a number of government officials in shaping up the regulation. So where do you see this currently at, the development of capacity building? Do you see that there is enough understanding of what needs to be done internally from the policy perspective, from the regulation perspective? When will we see the new, government decree on Islamic banking as it is? Because, you're in closer touch with the regulator. Give us some insights on what has been done and what we can expect until the end of this year.
Thank you for giving speech for me. Let me introduce first myself. It's my first speech on behalf of Center of Islamic Banking and Economics Al Huda. Let me give some details about our capacity building programs. Actually, yes, we have many experiences, enough experiences with Uzbek market regarding Islamic insurance takaful product and Islamic banking windows as well. Actually, I totally agree with other honorable speakers. Yes, from the governmental side, just the policy and the regulators are not enough developed for freely establishing Islamic banking or any Islamic financial windows in CIS region. As well as in our experience, we had some issues. We also faced some issues with regulatory-based sites. Actually, one of our services is product development, and we make business plans and other kind of all tendencies, directions for conventional financial institutions to make their operations in Sharia-based aspects. I can provide you with the experience of Apex Takaful, which has been launched recently and has been working under Sharia-based insurance, takaful, and also some other leasing companies as Taiba Leasing and so on. During the procedures which we have done with them, we have to face some issues with regulators and try to fix the Sharia rules with the government aspects and try to fix them with the process of with the operations of the companies. And of course, we involved many lawyers to this process from local market. But anyway, I also, in my opinion, I also think that Islamic fintech should be launched because in the worldwide we can see that Islamic fintech is going to be a very good option for just now kind of launching countries, who are launching Islamic finance. Because in this case we can remain in of course, in the first step, every company can have some sites which cannot be totally, fully based on Sharia perspectives, can have some mistakes in the first processes. So if we provide some Islamic fintech fintech solutions here, we would be more able to keep the transparency of the Islamic banking operations. So, but from the other side, I would think that when we did some market research in Uzbek market, as well as in CIS market, including Uzbek market, we could see that financial inclusion of population is comparatively low than other developed countries or developing countries. Even some majority part of people even not using the financial kind of products as well as banking services totally. So from this case, if we come up from this case, first of all, we should try to make more capacity building programs, not only for specialists of this sphere, but also for population. Of course, it will be totally kind of, it should be totally kind of, how can I say, supported by the government, because if people cannot have a good view on Islamic banking and can have true view on Islamic banking and finance, they cannot compare two services, I mean conventional Islamic ones, so they will not need either Islamic banking operations or Islamic fintech. So Al Huda Center of Islamic Banking and Economics is here for providing these services to the population and to the financial, conventional financial institutions, experts, specialists, with 1 or 2 specialized trainings mostly. We have been organizing many of these kind of trainings in our country so recently, and we are also offering some in-house trainings to specific companies to involve their specialists and give them brief informations, both practical and theoretical Islamic finance products to involve their specialists.
Do you do any special trainings to a central bank as well, and providing a working group for them to shape up the regulation?
Actually, as we are a business company, we do some free webinars for involving more and more people, but as well as from central bank as well. We had a few webinars, free webinars, in which we included this sphere, I mean central bank specialists as well. But in our most paid trainings, we tried to involve central bank specialists, but they said there is some kind of time to get involved, and we are working on it individually, and we will need in further, we will contact with you.
Thank you.
We get this response.
Mm-hmm. Arif, since you've been engaging with the regulator and some authorities, when do you think the regulation will be shaping up, or do we expect anything by end of this year?
Yeah, as far as central bank regulation our presidential decree will come out for Islamic banking in Uzbekistan. Few ministries working very efficiently and very aggressively to set up Islamic banking department in Central Bank of Uzbekistan, and especially I'm thankful to Ministry of Investment, who's already going to establish a TOR to have international Islamic consultants to come up with rules and regulations for Islamic banking department for central bank, which will later regulate the Islamic banking industry. Okay, and hopefully the international consultants will be here in a couple of months to set up all these rules and regulations and guide them through and take them through and set up Islamic banking department in Central Bank of Uzbekistan. So things are moving in the right direction, but it'll take some time, of course, because it's a new initiative in this country. As far as Irado said, that a lot of people, most of the people, they are out of the banking business, and this means I have to say in another fashion, and that these people are out of the financial banking system because of interest-based banking, and they are looking forward to have some kind of Islamic banking. So they'll be part of that banking system immediately. Mm-hmm. So as far as ADB and World Bank surveys are concerned, 35% population of Uzbekistan is out of banking business just because of interest-based banking. So this is a huge opportunity for Islamic banking operators to attract or tap this market immediately. And I'm telling you right now, even when I talk to a lot of customers within the bank, they are very willing to get into Islamic banking, okay? So that's why I was said earlier as well that 50% of the existing customer of any bank will get into Islamic window and they will open an account, they start doing business in Islamic fashion as well. So as far as customer attraction, a number of customers are concerned, how do we get get into Islamic banking profitability or business and operations? Number of customers is not that big issue right now. The issue is the legislation, regulations, policy and procedures, how to set up Islamic banking, and how to set up the operation of Islamic banking within the banking sectors. Okay, and for that, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Investment, and some other Ministry of Economics, they are aggressively working on it and supporting 100% Central Bank of Uzbekistan.
It's good that, obviously, it's a good news that all the authorities are now moving towards this development, since we do have Al Huda, who is working on capacity building. We've got international consultants such as yourself, Arif, who is here. We've got FinTech. It's good to know that, and it's good to see the largest FinTech companies in the market right now. And obviously someone like Bilal, who is also happy to share the experience based on his company, his bank, and his experience of shaping up the Islamic banking trends and to develop this bank elsewhere or here. So thank you very much for your today participation. Thank you all the guests. Thank you Arif, Khalid,
Just a
Bilal,
last thing.
Iroda.
Just
Yeah, so thank you very much for the participation. I really hope that this is not going to be the last conversation with you, and we are looking forward to invite you for the next series of events dedicated to Islamic banking and to talk deeply about each side, technology, legislation, and infrastructure. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you
lovely
so
day.
Thank you so much.
Take
Allah
care.
Hafiz.
Take care.
Спасибо большое, Ирина. Спасибо большое, что вы пришли. Я даже не думала, что я буду говорить.